Hi all. So what's going to happen in this tutorial today is I'm going to show you how to use the Giphy API to build a really simple web app that allows you to take in user input. So we'll do a noun. Yeah, we'll go with dogs. And upon button click, have it return a GIF, and then we can sort of give some style to it and kind of give it some treatment. Let's try another one. Let's try cute here. Cute. Oh, SpongeBob. Okay, so this is just an example of some of the things that you can do with the Giphy API, and what an API stands for is it stands for Application Programming Interface. All right, so if you head over to the Giphy page, right, that I have linked in the starter project, so here's a link for you up here. This, if you just go to the API Quickstart guide, this will give you everything that you need to know regarding how to use the Giphy API and the API key. Normally when you sign up for to create an app, you make an account and it gives you your very own API key. If you just navigate through the create an app feature, it'll show you exactly how to do that. I have included the API call and the API key in this project just to streamline things. Okay, so we're going to be building this interface using the Giphy application programming interface, and we are going to be using P5.js. So P5.js is a JavaScript library that's based off of processing. The link that is in the JavaScript file for y'all is the link to this getting started page. I love this. I love processing. I love the processing foundation. Here's like regular processing over here. And then you can get to P5 as well. P5 is just the JavaScript version of that. So it's a JavaScript library for using processing's functions and methods. And if you just scroll through here, right, it'll tell you like everything you need to know to get started on this. So it'll let you kind of just build stuff like right out of the box, really easy. So if you want to explore that on your own, here's where you can find a lot of really good stuff. References, libraries, examples, all that good stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump in here and start coding. I've made a previous video that gives a little bit more explanation to how I have authored my HTML and where CSS links in. So if you're a little confused about, this whole development ecosystem that I have going on, you can go ahead and find that previous video and it'll explain all those good things. In this tutorial, I'm going to be focusing on the JavaScript over here. Which is obviously linked into my HTML file down here. All right, and this has everything that you need. It has your libraries linked up for you. It has a script file linked up for you, so if you just download the zip file, you should be able to go. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do in the JavaScript file is we are going to pseudocode out exactly what we're going to be building here. Okay, so again, just to walk you through the actual app. What is happening here is that we put words into this input box, which we get the value from on a button click. And then what we're doing is we're sending a request to Giphy based on the information that the user has put in, and then we are returning an image. Okay, so that's what we're going to pseudocode out. We're going to pseudocode out that logic so that we have sort of like a roadmap to follow. So I'll head over here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need is in order to get the JavaScript to kind of talk to HTML in the appropriate way, we are going to first author some variables. So we're going to need 4 variables. So these are going to be variables, right? And the variables that we are going to declare is going to be for the user input 1. And I'll just indent this a little bit. And then the button for input. Okay. And then we're also going to call one. We're going to mix it up a little bit. That's going to be a little different from the example that I showed you. We're going to do just one for the button. All right, so we're going to call a string based on a button click. And I'll explain what a string is just a moment. All right, so, and then we're just going to, maybe let's call this like our lonely button. Okay, so, oh, and then we need a couple variables. So we actually need 5 variables to hold the images, right? So we're going to put in information here, we're going to send the information on the button click, and then what we're going to return is an image. And we need something to kind of hold the image, right? So we're going to just call that, like, let's say input img, and then we need a, let's just say this one's going to be like a button image, okay? That's how you spell button. I'm very bad at spelling. Button image. Bah. All right, so let's just talk about variables really quick. If you don't know what a variable, think of it as like a box, okay? And it's a box you could put other boxes inside of. It's a box you could put other stuff in. So it's a little piece of code that you can store data inside of. And that data can be anything, really. And I'll show you a couple different examples of how you can use variables in different ways throughout this project. So if you just think of them as like a box, you could take stuff out of the box, you could put stuff in the box. Later, you know, I don't know, 5 years, you could, you know, pull the box out of the attic and put more stuff in the box. So they're updatable pieces of code that you define. Okay, so what we're going to do up here is we're just actually going to declare the variables, and then we're going to be defining them throughout our program here. So let's do our first variable. How we declare a variable is just var, and then we say the name. So this one, I'll just call it input. And again, bad at spelling is going to happen. And then let's just call this one var, we'll just call this one, let's call it input button. And we'll call this one lonely button, because that seems cute, a little emo button. Okay, and then we'll call this one var, we're going to call this the input. We'll just do exactly this. There we go. Input image. And then we will do var button. Let's do so button image. Okay, great. So some other, so we got those out of the way, but let's take a minute and let's just sort of pseudocode out the rest of this. All right, so we have all of our variables, and I'm going to point out a couple things that are already in this file. So we have a function setup and a function draw. That's straight from P5. If you head on over to that getting started page, you need that in every script. Every script that's going to be using the P5 library needs to have a function setup and a function draw. Technically, you don't need a draw every time, but for the purposes of this tutorial and just for keeping things simple, go ahead and just throw the setup and the draw in there, because we will eventually use both. All right, and then the other thing that is already predefined in here is that we, like I said before, we have the Giphy API and the API key. So I will explain exactly how we're getting data from what essentially is a JSON file in a little bit, but let's just sort of get through here and do the rest of our pseudocode. All right, so we got variables. We got our API key, which is how we're going to go into Giphy's, crazy library of GIFs and get stuff out of it. All right, so what we're going to need inside of setup, we're going to have to go inside of setup, and a couple things are going to happen there. Okay, so we're going to need to create a canvas. All right, and a canvas is sort of the thing that you draw to. So you create a canvas with JavaScript. You can also create a canvas with HTML. We're going to make it with JavaScript, and we're going to be able to draw to it through some JavaScript functions. So we're going to create a canvas, and then what we're going to do is we're going to send canvas, or actually we're going to give the canvas a parent, okay? And the reason that we're going to do that is we're going to pretty much put the canvas that we're creating. We're going to do this a lot of stuff. We're going to put the canvas that we're creating via JavaScript into the HTML in a really specific way so that we can move it around with CSS, right? Because HTML is sort of the backbone of your web environment, right? It's sort of Anything that you want in the page, you declare in the HTML file. Anything that you want to look a certain way, you do that with CSS. And then anything that you want to have interactivity is going to be JavaScript. Okay, so we're going to give the canvas a parent. And then we are also going to tell these variables that they are linked. We'll say linked, yeah, that they are like linked to these pieces of HTML. So these variables are actually going to carry around the HTML data with them, and then we can do stuff to the HTML through JavaScript. So we're going to just connect these up with these pieces of HTML. So if we take a look at our actual project real quick, okay, we have an input and we have two buttons, all right? So the input, this is that first input, this one is that first button, and this one is that second button, okay? So we need to kind of connect these pieces of HTML with the JavaScript. So we will do that also inside of setup, because setup is stuff that's just going to be running one time. It's where you kind of set things up. Okay, so in here we are going to connect input var with input, right? And we're going to connect input button with the user input submit button. So I'll just copy and paste that for the time being. All right, and the input that I mean here is actually this input friend here. So maybe we'll just grab the ID just to make our life a little easier later. Okay, and then we will connect the lonely button. So lonely button friend is going to get connected up with, you know what, let's change this, button submit, let's change this to button alone. Oh, sad button. Okay, so lonely button with button alone. Lonely button. That's cute, I'm gonna keep it. Okay, so we got the pseudocode for that, and then we're gonna do, the last thing that we're gonna do inside of the setup is we're actually gonna create our own function. Ooh, custom function time. All right, we're gonna create a custom function. Wow, custom function. And this custom function is going to allow us to get the API key. Oop, here we go. The API key, and combine it with a string that the user has put into the inbox. Okay, so we'll say API plus API key. Make these some comments here. Oh, and also, if you don't know, I'm just making these comments by highlighting and hitting command slash turns comments on and off. And comments, if you don't know, comments are just pieces of code that, not pieces of code, geez. Well, they can be pieces of code. Check it out. You can like turn this piece of code into a comment to kind of like cancel it out, or you can just leave yourself little notes and they're called comments. All right. So we got API key. And we're going to say the user input. And then outside of setup, we're going to add another custom function. And this custom function is going to turn this function. So turn the API function into an image. Oh my god. Okay, and then last thing we will do, we'll worry about how we're going to deal with this, the lonely button in just a minute, because it's going to be really similar to how we're building this environment up. So let's do that first, and then we'll add that additional functionality in. Okay, so what we'll do now is we just want to say, we're going to just do a clear inside of draw, okay? And really quick, let's just take a minute and talk about what a function is, okay? So here we have a function. You declare it with the function keyword, you give it a name, you put some parameters there, right? So you can put like return values in there, which we'll do in a minute. But this is the most important thing to pay attention to. This curly bracket friend here. All right, this is called the block. Anything that is inside of a block is stuff that's going to happen, right? It means like literally you do shit in here, right? So like the block is where you do shit, where things happen, all right? And if that's all you know about a function for right now, that's totally fine. If you just follow along, you'll be totally good. If there's some things that are still like a little unclear about like, you know, the exact pieces of programming, I would encourage you to just keep going and just follow along and do like some heavy Googling after the tutorial. Or you can send me an email and we can have a cute conversation about code. All right, so now that we have this all marked up and we kind of have our plan ready to go, what we'll do is the first thing is just to create our canvas, all right? So we're going to call the create canvas function, which is straight out of processing, all right, straight out of the P5 library. And the create canvas function accepts 2 parameters, okay? So again, like I said before, this is your parameter set. This create canvas function is expecting 2 parameters. Like for instance, if we look here and we can just go home and do create canvas. Check it out. This is using an API. Ooh. Okay. Here we go. Create canvas. And it'll tell you exactly what it does. So at the start of setup, calling create canvas. All right. So the syntax. The height, or the width, and the height. All right. So the way that processing works is that it's just a grid, horizontal, vertical space, right? So, and we always go with the width first. So the x is always first, the x coordinate and the y coordinate. You know, also referred to as width and height in some situations. So for our canvas, we're just going to give it a width and a height. That's what we're going to do here. So we're going to head here. And I'm just going to give it like, I don't know, 300 by 300 for now. We will change this later. And then let's also just give it a background color. So that function is just going to be background, right? And this works with RGB colors. So 25500 means all the red, none of the G, none of the B. All right, so let's just save this here. And this code editor that I'm using is called Brackets. I really love it. It's free. It's an Adobe product. Really easy to use. It has this little live link here that you can click in the HTML file and just click live link and it'll open the file up for you. Okay, so what should happen after you create that create canvas function and give it a background color is you should have a little canvas friend, okay? It should pop up like right underneath your HTML because the JS will always come after the HTML, at least in the way that I have added it in here. Okay, and then let's just do, I don't know, let's just do something cute real quick. Let's just head down and draw, and let's just do just a little ellipse friend here. We're going to draw a circle. We're going to give it an X position, so this whole situation works on coordinates. The X and the Y. I always remember X is like, it's like reaching out horizontally, and Y has that vertical stick, right? So that's how I kind of always remember X is horizontal, Y is vertical. Okay, so for the ellipse, let's just say we're going to give it, I don't know, the position of 10 and 10 and a height and a width of, I don't know, 40 and 40 for the time being. Save. All right, so there's my circle friend. And maybe some of y'all that have used processing before know this little trick, right? We can put some mouse data in there. Mouse X, mouse Y. I'm always just like tickled by this, even though I've been teaching this kind of stuff for a while now. If we use these mouse X, mouse Y functions, it's going to get the coordinate of the mouse for the X and the coordinate of the mouse for the Y. And what it will allow you to do is it'll allow you to draw. Cute. Okay, so we'll leave that in there just because it's fun and cute, and I don't know, more things should be fun and cute. Okay, so now let's get serious, everyone. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually start to pass this canvas. We're going to start to pass it into the HTML here, okay? So the way that we're going to do that is we're actually going to make this into a variable, right? So we're going to declare a variable var canvas, and we are going to assign the value create canvas. This is an assignment operator. So we're going to assign this value of create canvas to canvas, all right? And then what we'll do is we will update that variable. So we'll call canvas friend, and we will update it down here. Oops, I'm sorry. Not with equals. We're actually going to use object notation, which is a period and a method that's going to come straight from the processing library. And the method we're going to use is parent. Okay? And parent, if we take a look at parent friend, again, we'll use our little search bar friend. Okay? So this tells you everything that you need to know about parent. Attaches the element to a specified parent. A way of setting the container for the element. Accepts either a string, ID, or a DOM node, okay? So this ID is what we're looking for. All right, so pretty much what this allows us to do is, in the language of HTML, sometimes we have parents. This is a parent. These are its children. They're its children because it's inside of this thing, okay? So that's how we refer to, like, okay, these two things are nested inside of this thing. This is kind of the top level, so it's a mama, right? It's a parent. And then these are the little babies. So this is the children and the parents. That's how we refer to that. So we can also use that language in JavaScript, because what we want to do is we want to give this canvas, we want to give it an HTML parent, because then we can style it. We can use our CSS page to style it. So what I'm going to do here is, because the P5 says, okay, it needs an ID, I'm going to give it an ID. All right, so this canvas is using an ID to name it, right? This HTML element here, it's being named with an ID. And because it accepts an ID, I do not need to put the ID symbol in there. So that means ID, this means class. I don't need to put that in there. I think that's a little confusing because we will be using functions where you do need to specify whether it's an ID or a class. And if you don't know what an ID or a class is, like I mentioned before, I have a previous video that I made that kind of just gives you like a really quick introduction to all these things. It's really short, so maybe just spend a little time with that. Or there's a resource document that I sent along that has some links in there that can kind of walk you through all that good stuff. But for the sake of brevity for this tutorial, I'm going to keep going. So we've made a canvas. We've given it a variable. We passed it into a variable. And now we have used object notation to say, like, yo, canvas, I'm going to give you your own little parent here. I'm going to give you some other type of functionality to run. And your parent is going to be this canvas. So now when I open up that HTML file, oops, there we go. My bad, y'all. Okay, so when I open up this HTML file, I'm going to put it over here. All right, here's where that button style is coming from. Those like little cute button fronts here. What I can say in here is I can target the canvas. Actually, let's do that down here. So hashtag canvas. So I'm talking to this thing here. And oops. And I can give it just some positioning. So let's give it some margin. And I don't know, let's just give it like 10 VW margin, just so we can get it to move around a little bit. And then we'll kind of mess with it later. Check it out. So now I can sort of move that canvas exactly where I want it to, you know, and you can put it in a flex box. You can like completely reorganize like how you're making everything perform in this environment visually. And then, I don't know, let's just do like a cute thing here. Box, shadow, yeah, okay. Let's do like 1 VW horizontal offset, 1 VW vertical offset, maybe like a 1 VW blur and a 1 VW spread, and then let's go with like, we'll just go with like a blue for now. Cute. Okay, so the reason why this is validating to have this huge space in here is because if I give the canvas, if I give it a specific width and height, right? So if I say it has like a width of the same thing that my canvas has. So right now I'm 300 by 300. If I give it a width of 300, we'll say pixels, and maybe we could just leave the height alone for now. Yeah, check it out. We cute. Okay, so we'll just leave this here for right now, and we'll sort of position things a little bit better in the second half of this video. Okay, so now let's switch back to JavaScript, and let's get these variables synced up with the way that we have authored our HTML. So we are going to be updating our variables. So, all right, so let's just first reorganize some of our comments here, just to kind of keep ourselves sane. All right, so connect the input var to the user input one. So check it out. Pretty much what we got to do is just say, all right, input, which is this one here. We're going to update it. We're going to give it a parent. Same thing that we did there. Okay, so the input var that we have, right? We're going to connect it to this piece of HTML. So we are going to say input is equal to select, and then our parameter for select. And what select is looking for is it's looking for either a class or an ID, right? So a way that we name an HTML element. So mine's called input user one, and you do need the punctuation for this. Okay, so input select user input one. Okay, and then we will do the input button. Oh, actually I have it down here. So the input button here equals, and we can say select, and that's going to be the input user button. So again, I'm just connecting the variables that I've declared in JavaScript with my pieces of HTML, my HTML elements. Okay, and then lonely button friend, lonely button, look cute, sad lonely button. We will just grab her, and we'll do a select, and that's going to be button alone. Oh, and check it, y'all, I like prepped and I have all this stuff over here. I'm trying to like work more than I need to. Okay, great. So now we have all those items connected. Okay, and then the images we're going to connect up in just a minute. So let's first take a look at, before we define this custom function, let's take a look at what this API, an API key actually does. Okay, so if we take our API, which is pretty much just the link, I'm just going to take up to the GIFs part here. So this is a link to what is called a JSON file. Okay, so this is Giphy. We're like in Giphy's space right now, okay? And a JSON file is a JavaScript file that has a bunch of data in it that we can like get data out of and do stuff with it, okay? So that's what we're accessing. So we have like this front version of Giphy, right? Let's head on over to Giphy. Okay, so we have this front version of Giphy, and we can like download GIFs, we can share GIFs, and it's like really user friendly. But we also have this back end of it, right? We have this back end that has like the actual like hard data for everything that you see here, for all the visuals that we see here. So that's what we're going to get, because we want to be calling them like smartly through user input.